Hey, I'm Dean, and I'm a proud father of 4. But last year, something terrible happened, and I almost lost all my children. Me and the kids were on holiday in Beijing. It was kind of chaotic. The children were 7, 5, and 4-year-old twins. Over our first week, we went to the Great Wall and we explored palaces and parks. That day, we were in the busy city center, and the kids were tired and hungry. I was out of snacks, and they couldn't wait. I looked around and saw a stall selling some street food. We walked over to it, and I sat the kids down on a bench while I paid for the food. But when I turned, the bench was empty. My kids were gone. I looked around and couldn't see them anywhere. I went back to the stall when I felt someone stab me. I immediately fell down unconscious, and when I opened my eyes, I was laying on the ground at the same place where I felt like someone had stabbed me. I got up and ran to the bench where I left my children, yet no one was there. I started calling out their names, but there was no answer. I started to feel sick in my stomach. Where were they? I dropped the food and started calling their names as loud as I could over and over again. I stood on the bench and looked around. There were people everywhere, but I couldn't see my children. Then I saw something in the distance. It was a little girl from behind wearing a red coat. It was Lily, my youngest. She was being led down a side street by a stranger. I jumped off the bench and ran in that direction. I knocked over someone's shopping trolley and their food went everywhere, but I didn't stop to help. I pushed through a crowd of tourists and ran across a busy road, dodging cars and rickshaws, and headed down the side street. I ran down it, and then I saw a man leading my little girl away. I ran up to the girl and grabbed her off of him only to realize that it wasn't Lily. It was a girl around the same age who started screaming and crying. The man pulled her away and started shouting at me. I was too shocked to respond. He punched me in the face, and I fell down and hit my head. When I woke up, it was dark. I was disoriented, and I had no idea where I was. Yet, all of a sudden, it all came back to me, and I remembered that my children were lost, and I had to find them. Then, I remembered I was in an unfamiliar country, and my children were lost. I sat on the floor in pain, wishing that all of this was just a nightmare that would end as soon as I wake up. Unfortunately, it wasn't. When I snapped back to reality, I got my phone out of my pocket and called the police, but it wouldn't connect. I was dialing 999 like I would in the UK. I didn't even know how to call the Chinese police. I ran back into the city center, found a public security station, and went in. I was shouting and crying at the same time, and the worst thing was that they didn't understand what I was saying. Eventually, I was taken into an interview room and left there. I was anxiously waiting for someone to come and speak to me. I waited for a long time, however, no one came. I went to the door and was locked in. Minutes felt like hours. I was extremely nervous and I began to lose my mind until someone finally opened the door. It was a policeman and a translator. I explained to them what had happened. I was asked for a description of the children, so I gave them lots of photos from my phone to help them with their search. And that was it. They told me to go. I went back to the hotel alone. It was now the middle of the night, too late for me to go and look for them. And it was too late for me to call their mom and tell her what had happened. You see, their mom was due to fly out and meet us in 2 days. She was so proud of me taking the children abroad by myself, and I had failed her. The next day, I tried to call her, but it went straight to voicemail. I couldn't tell her what had happened in a message, so I just asked her to call me back. Then I had a thought. I remembered that Sue's sister, Li Na, was living in Beijing and works at a bank. I sent her a message and told her she had to meet me. We met for coffee that morning, but I was too scared to drink. As soon as I saw her, I burst into tears and told her what had happened. She was looking forward to seeing the children. She was surprised and upset at the same time, yet she promised to help. She took the day off work in order to help me find them. We went back to the square with photos and spoke to as many people as possible about the disappearance. Having her there to translate was a great help, but no one had seen them. We went to the police together and they said that they were doing all that they could. And the best thing I could do was to consult with the British Embassy and make sure that I could be contacted if needed. That night, Sue called me. Breaking the news to her was the hardest thing I had ever done. She was understandably very upset. She told me that she was going to fly out as soon as possible. 48 hours passed since I lost them. I felt helpless. I wasn't able to think, eat, or sleep. I just wanted to make sure that my kids were okay and nothing bad had happened. Li Na was off work still and helping me. She went to the airport and spoke to security there. I went to the British Embassy immediately so I could get some help. I went to the first person I saw in front of me begging for help. I started telling him that I had lost my children and I didn't know what to do. The man asked me to calm down and breathe so they could understand what really happened. He talked to someone over the phone and he led me to a room to wait. Suddenly, 2 policemen came in saying, "Dean, you are under arrest in charge of kidnapping your children." I was in shock and I started screaming, "That's nonsense! I came to report their absence and you arrest me instead? Why was I being treated so badly?" A British official came into the room and sat me down. He explained to me that Sue had reported my children missing that morning and had accused me of kidnapping them. I told them that was ridiculous. I had her permission to take the kids abroad and she was due to fly out to join us. To my surprise, I figured out that she told the officer we were separated and she had been kicked out of the family home, forcing her to return to work. She had no idea I was taking the children abroad and was worried about their safety. That was when I really freaked out. I knew that something had happened and I had to find my children. I went running to the door, but I was stopped by the policeman who started shouting at me in Chinese. Soon, there were other policemen restraining me. The next week, I was sent back to the UK where I was placed in a flat, on bail waiting trial for kidnapping. No one would believe that I was the victim and my children had been taken from me. Sue was interviewed on TV crying for her children to be returned to her. And I couldn't leave the flat as I was so scared that I was going to be shouted at, or worse, attacked. Every day was hard. I kept wondering if the children had forgotten about me. I was there for weeks and weeks, just with my own thoughts. How much had the children changed? Were they safe? Were they even... No, I didn't want to think about that. I was powerless to do anything. I couldn't contact Sue, but I felt so betrayed by her. Why had she reported that I had taken our children? We were happily married, or so I had thought. Maybe she was just as scared as I was. I sat there all alone, when suddenly I thought I saw things moving. But when I stood up to check if what I saw was real, actually there was nothing. I was sure stuff moved in the reflection of the mirrors, but no one was there. I also heard my name, or weird, unclear voice. I don't know, I'm not sure. The whole thing made me paranoid. I was so worried, so I looked up the symptoms on the internet, and I figured out that these are examples of hallucinations. I was hallucinating. Maybe after all, I am a bad father. Sue was right. She did the right thing by reporting me. Thoughts kept revolving in my head. I was losing my mind. I couldn't take it anymore. I kept on blaming myself for not being responsible enough and losing my own children. I deserved everything that was happening to me. I freaked out and doubted myself. I think I have a problem. A mental problem. Yes, I am mentally ill. I kidnapped my own children. Then I cried and I screamed, "I kidnapped my children, but I don't remember where they are." My head was about to blow. Sue knew everything. That is why she reported me. I thought I should see her. I have to go and ask for an explanation. I was feeling suffocated. I wanted to know what had happened to me. So I called the police and asked to go home because I needed to bring some personal stuff from there. They sent 2 officers that drove me to my house. I arrived there handcuffed in a police car. And when I got out of it, people were staring. My neighbors were looking through their windows. Everyone was pointing and whispering. I even heard some of them cursing me for kidnapping my own children. I felt ashamed, disgraced of myself. On my way upstairs, I was thinking of giving up and admitting everything to the police to make things better. I'm ready to go to jail if my children will return safely to their mother. But first, I had to talk to Sue. When I got into our house, I remembered all the good things, our happy memories together. I kept on imagining their presence and hearing their voices. The officers were waiting in front of the door, and they made sure that I wouldn't get near Sue because I'm not allowed to talk to her. But I have to. So I went to the room and pretended that I was packing some stuff. And then I sneaked out, carefully looking for her. I saw her standing in the corridor. I approached her quietly, but then I heard her talking on the phone. I hid behind the shoe cabinet and accidentally heard the conversation she was having. My jaw dropped. My wife was cheating on me. She was talking to someone named James, and she said, "James, baby, don't worry. It's all going to end soon, and we're going to be together." I was completely taken aback. I was bursting with fury, yet I had to stay calm and think of a rational solution to get myself out of this mess. On the other hand, I couldn't blame her. Her husband is mentally ill and kidnapped her children. I mean, she deserves to be happy. On my way home, I was in complete shock. I couldn't sleep. I kept on tossing and turning all night. I figured out a lot of surprising things in one day, and I decided that I should see a doctor. I talked to the police. I didn't confess yet, but I told them that all of this mess is driving me crazy and I have the right to see a doctor. And so I set an appointment at a psychiatrics clinic. Police officers came and drove me there. But for privacy, I went to the doctor's room alone. It was a doctor that worked with my wife a long time ago after she had our first kid. So I was talking to the doctor about what really happened to me. During our conversation, he had to leave the room for a while, so I sat there looking around, when I suddenly saw a file on his desk with my wife's full name on it. The file was kind of hidden, but I'm sure it was my wife's name. I was surprised and curiosity drove me insane, so I stole the file. The paper stated that my wife was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, a rare condition where a person can have 2 or more personalities present in the body. What have I done to deserve all this? Why is this happening to me? I tried to calm down and think reasonably. I finally decided to call the police and tell them everything since I couldn't do anything without supervision. The police started to investigate the case and found out that my wife really suffers from DID disorder. In her case, the character she developed from the disorder took control of her. And recently, this dangerous character became more dominant. She calls herself Yu Yan, and James is her boyfriend. She kidnapped the children and planned to accuse me in order to get rid of Sue's family and to live with her boyfriend without our existence. The whole story was mind-blowing. We were happy together. We were supposed to be on a holiday and have fun. I ended up without a wife and children. Fortunately, something good finally happened, and I found my children. They returned home safe. They were at James's place, and luckily, he didn't harm them. Sue/Yu Yan, I don't know what to call her, and James both got caught. Sue is receiving treatment at a mental hospital, and James is in jail. Though I have my children back, and thank God they're okay, I'm trying to understand what had happened. I just can't get over it. And the thing that bothers me the most is that I can't decide whether she is guilty or not. Should I visit her? Should I let our children see her? What should I do?